Oh yeah, guys! Welcome to the KFO show / live with Gramps. Guys, I'm excited tonight. Got Gramps, as you can see, on the show. And if you love kayak fishing, there's no better place to be on the planet than right here, right now. So we're going to be talking post-spawn bass fishing, specifically where are those fish at in this unique spawning stage, and more importantly, like, how do you identify that and how do you pick them up and put some inches on the board, or simply just might be your therapy? So Gramps and I will get to that in just a moment. Got a couple announcements here. The podcast on the KFO show is pushing over 700 listens an episode. So if you're listening in from the podcast, thank you so much. You have surpassed the reach we get through YouTube. So freaking awesome. I asked last week for you guys to reach out to me if you're listening in. And I had some of you guys reach out, which I love. I had someone from Texas today, like, hey, you told me to reach out. If you're ever in Texas, you got a place to stay and we will go kayak fishing. And so I keep a list of everybody who reaches out to me. So if I ever travel to a state I usually don't travel to, I will be reaching out to you. So if you're listening in, let me know that. Second, at least of my announcements, Grants might have some after being gone for a month. I'm sure he does. Second one is Cast Cray giveaway. So the Cast Cray giveaway for the KFO show is if you become a channel member of Wendall Fishing, and even if you become a channel member of Gramps tonight, you'll get a $10 gift code to castcray.com. And so if you're unfamiliar kind of with channel memberships, this is where you get access to like membership perks. I have loyalty badges, custom emojis. I actually made one specifically for the show tonight for Gramps. I call it Laser Gramps. And so if you're one of my channel members, please throw that in the comment section so Gramps can see that. But I go the extra mile. Early access to videos, behind the scenes updates. I send out decals. It's a good time. There's a $2, $5, and $10 option. Would love to have you join, and we'll send you out that $10 castcray.com code. And we had 2 members this past week. Thank you, Sierra Dees and Scott Ehlers. You guys friggin' rock. All right. Remember, this is an interactive show. We want to hear questions, interaction from you in the comments, because we always pick those up and answer those when we can. But Gramps, let's bring the Toadmaster on the show, my man.
How you doing? The anti-frog.
The anti-frog. Oh, you got some yardage out of that bad boy. But yeah, I did watch your video with Chad.
I did manage to milk that one for quite a while. Ended up, and all's well that ends well. We got to go down and spend some time with Chad Hoover down on Gunnersville, and then spent a day on Hero Lake, which is going to be a new fishing area / campground to support the KBF Fish Ops, which is the Fish Operation Prevent Suicide, and OPS stands for several other things as well. But it's going to be a homeland hero. Those who love supporting our freedom and so forth and so on, an area that's going to probably grow into be a nice little camping spot. And those are involved with the Catch 22 are well aware, and because those programs support, fish ops, and to a degree, the knucklehead stuff that we're doing, provides some of that stuff that direction as well. Along to, charities like Heroes on the Water, which Chad's charity is going to be for. I'm supporting the Indiana Fallen Outdoors chapter. So there's a lot of great things going on there too. But yeah, we had fun playing, the Frog Challenge for the last couple of years. And like a lot of people who, if you're not familiar with what was going on, is I've always hated throwing hollow body frogs. I mean, I would throw the plastic toads because to me, I could get a hookup. I mean, they would, it's like fishing, anything else soft plastic. Of course, they're not as, durable for the most part as a hollow body frog, but I've always caught them better on toads on frogs. I'm that dude that's always either setting the hook like you're fishing a chatterbait and just kind of gently lifting, or swing and miss, and I'm just, like I'm jig fishing, where it's like, you see it and you just go blam, and then, frog and grass come flying back at you. And it was a 2-year ordeal. And it's funny because I edited my video, and at the beginning of it, I showed several of the fish misses.
Right.
I had this like 4.5 pounder, smack a frog. It looked like an orca coming out after, the
Free Willy. Got his hand up.
But when I went to go edit the video, I couldn't figure out what hard drive I had saved like a catalog because I was literally going to do this like a 9-inning baseball game where 3 strikes over 9 innings before I finally hit the home run at the end of the game. But I couldn't figure out, and then I found those after I published the video. But we had fun. We had fun in that ordeal. Everybody enjoyed all of the different frog jokes, and still to this day. But to be fair and honest, it is that time of year, and I actually have one type on. This is one of the flappy type frogs that came in the Monster Bass box this month. And I actually prefer like the buzzbait type frogs because you can fish them in so many different ways. But this is one I got in a box that I'm going to be testing out too. But for those who've been wondering why I haven't been live, I think probably the last time I was on with you, I kept getting intermittent internet loss. And, my wife teleworks quite a bit. And of course, being a dude on YouTube, you gotta have internets to be able to do anything. And it turns out after they replaced my modem, sent me the newest, 10G, whatever, said it was probably an issue outside. Guy, came out today and crawled under the house. And we recently cut, all the cable, like last year. So now we just do full-time streaming. Of course, that drives us nuts if your internet's going out. Guy crawls under the house and removes all the old stuff and updates the thing, and signal's still bad. And it's like, what the heck? So he comes in here to the fishing man cave, and he looks at my corner shelf where the wire comes out. And basically from the wall out of the port going up, I'm going to drop this. From the wall going up, I can't even hold on to it.
It's like a bass going after your frog.
Yeah. So this is basically how this cable looked, as it was coming out of the wall and then running up my bookcase. Well, this little bend right here, over the last 5 years since this was installed, apparently, over time, the internets were running out of this corner here.
There you go.
So this whole time, it was because of this bad, the bend that I basically put in it, 5 years ago when we moved in here. It's taken that long to degrade, and it finally killed the signal. So my wife's like, I think he's got this nailed to the wall. My wife's like, I don't care, rip it out. She's supposed to be teleworking, and the cable's down. So he cuts off the end, puts a new one on. Oh, voila. Magically connected to the interwebs again.
Welcome back.
Here we are.
Welcome back, my friend.
And I'm an IT guy.
I mean, you troubleshoot it. The last thing you want to do is start checking all the wires, right? You do all the other stuff first. Maybe.
Yeah, I'm like, it's been working all this time. I mean, it's, didn't even think about it. But, anyway, our dude was awesome. Got that all fixed up. It was incredible. And we're back. So you're the first live I've done since my last live with you. And
yeah.
So Jeremy and I will be starting up and bring it back online, our Two Brothers Fishing podcast. Probably starting next week sometime too. But yeah, it's been an adventure trying to chase down. But yep, frog fishing and doing all that, qualifying for the KBF State Series Challenge Championship. That's in October before we go down to Guntersville again in November for the Hero Cup. And, and then qualified again for the National Championship again next season. So this last couple of months, I mean, May, I didn't post a single video because there was no time to edit when you're trying to qualify for those bigger tournaments. And all the time was, spent on the water too. So as fishing here sucked in May. We were like pre and in the middle of spawn, and then it finally got good right there towards the end when I was able to lay the smack down and catch some fish. And then, June has been a little slow, but I haven't fished nearly as much. I just needed to accumulate some points. But I've been trying to get back to being a YouTuber and creating some content again and getting back on that. And that's when we started our beginner kayak fishing, series on my channel to kind of bring the people that we've brought into fishing and bank fishing now doing kind of like what you've been doing, bringing people into the kayaks. I'm moving that direction as well.
Heck yeah. It's been fun. YouTube has been like crazy for me recently.
Bro,
just going.
You have been dropping some bangers and a lot of good quality content, and it's showing. I mean, your views and subscriber count is on fire right now.
It's on fire. I don't know what's going on, but thank you.
You're putting in the work. I mean, the bottom line, if you have to make a good content, and you have to make a lot of good content, and you have really been dropping those bangers for the last couple of months, and you can see the growth, and it's really starting to pay off for you too.
Appreciate that. Well, let's hop in. We got a couple things. I want to talk knucklehead, but not right now. We'll come back to that. Circle back. Let's go post spawn bass fishing. Right.
Oh yeah,
So you and I have relatively. We might be off a couple of weeks, and granted,
pretty
we all
close.
know
Yeah.
that fish don't spawn and post, all at the same time. They do it kind of in waves. But explain kind of your take, and I'll explain my take here in a little bit on what happens from the spawn to the post spawn, because that's what a lot of us are probably dealing with right now to a degree. I mean, I'm
Yeah.
seeing fry balls here left and right, and so I know they're coming off the
So
spawn.
when the fish, finish spawning, or they have their fry on the beds, and then they go when the fry move off of the beds, the bass go into fry guarding mode. And what that means is they will sit. It's kind of funny the irony in how this works, but the fry will start moving, and you'll see them in pockets on the water. And you look at them at first, it's like they're minnows, but they grow pretty fast. But the bass will sit underneath them to ward off the crappie, the other bass, the bluegill, who love to feed on them, because what are the bluegill getting ready to do? They're trying to
Ready
feed
to
up because
spawn.
they're getting
Yep.
ready to go spawn,
Yep.
as are the shad as well. So the bass are exhausted at this point. You have a lot of folks trying to catch them on the bed, because they know once they come off the bed, they're going to be hard to catch for a little bit, because they're going to move from the beds towards a little more shallower water, but they're really going to be chasing those fry around, who are like, it's like herding cats. You just never know which way they're going to go.
Mhm.
And so they spend probably, I think, a week doing that, right? And then once the fry get to a size, and it's funny because we actually ran into a ball of them, and they grow pretty quick, but they will, kind of dissipate, and then the bass go back kind of to living their lives. But they're starving, they're famished. They've literally been sitting on the bed, taking care of the babies. They need to feed. And normally when they need to feed, it's about the time the bluegill start getting on the bed, and it's about the time the shad start doing their thing too.
Yep.
And so fishing can get really good, but you gotta it's a lot of people try to catch them when they're still underneath those balls of bait, dropping things. You might want to get one to bite every now and then, but at this point, they're pretty much, they're hard to catch. And everybody's like, where did the fish go?
Yep.
And it gets to be a pain. But when they kind of finish up with that, fish by nature, you'll either find the shallow water fish,
Yep.
the fish that like to spend their summers in the beach. They want to be in that skinny water, or they want to be in the shallow coves. And then you also have those that are your offshore bass. They want to go back, go deep, be cool. They ain't about it. It's like they're like people. Some of them like to be hot natured, some of them like to be cool. So that's when your tactics start changing as you get towards summer, is fishing those offshore, places, brush piles, and things like that. Or my favorite, when you find them in the coves chasing all the fish, you bust out that chatterbait and hit them in a cove and just start laying into them.
You meant
But
frog, right? Bust out the
and
frog,
then
start
and then
laying
your
into him.
the frogs will do. Well, I mean, I got to be fair. I mean, because those people who have lakes that are covered, have grass in them.
Oh yeah.
You'll have that grass matted up along the banks. Those bass will lay up under there. So the folks who like to throw their frogs, that's what you're targeting. You know what I'm saying? And then the fish that live under the lily pads, the same kind of thing. And then in the heavy matted grass, that's when your punch rigging and stuff like that starts coming in. So it's a couple of different games based on kind of how you're equipped. If you're an offshore guy with side scan or forward facing, you're probably trying to hit those offshore bass, because they're not targeted by the bank runners all the time. So you'll see a lot of guys that really, really catch big bass in the summer. They're the ones hitting, that's not to say there's not big fish caught in skinny water. Buddy of mine on Sunday caught he tied his PB at 22 and a half,
Nice.
throwing a frog, shallow water on matted grass.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's one of those things. It's just, your techniques start changing too. Good to see our good friend Andrew
Andrew, man, he
Hayes
just
in
popped
the
in.
chat.
Welcome,
Yep.
the host of Tackle Talk. If you guys hasn't, if you want another podcast to binge watch on, that is a solid podcast. Andrew
One
knows
of
what he's
the
talking
top
about.
fishing podcasts. He's been
Yeah,
climbing up there, and
millions.
he's up in the top 10 in like some of in the outdoor sports categories as well. So
Yeah,
Andrew has been killing it. If you don't listen to Tackle Talk podcast, you're really missing a good one too.
you are. He did a banger. I had him on the show. Did a banger job on 5 rod kind of combos for 95% of fishing. I have the
Yep.
full episode. If you guys missed that one, go check it out. But I also edited it down to a 10-minute version of like the juice. But so thank you, Andrew. You guys are freaking awesome. 2 great dudes, 1 stream. Sign me up. Appreciate that, man. Appreciate it. All right, so that's your kind of your take, and I don't want to disagree with all that stuff. I think it's right, spot on. But let me kind of give you kind of what I've experienced, and it's fishing. It's kind of like what your experience did it work from you. So you got what I try to target when it comes to post spawn fishing, because that's where I'm at, or all the transition points from
Yep.
how they came to spawn, right? So if you were nailing them in the pre-spawn and you're like, where are they at now? Well, they're on the same transition points, going back out to their summer hunts and summer hideouts if they're not staying under the lilies there. So they're transitioning back. And so if you pick them, a lot of times they like to hang out in the cover. So, and these routes are interesting, right? And so they're going to be holding close to cover, in my opinion. Those grass beds, the timber. It can even be. I know at my lakes around here, like the water was low, and from the waves kind of hitting it, it eroded maybe like 6, 7 inches, and then the water rose back up again. Well, guess what route a lot of bass are going to be taking back? They're going to be taking back that little bit of structure that has changed, and they're going to run that line. And so if you know where that line is, you got yourself an advantage. And so for me, when the temperatures rise, my baits go faster and faster. That's typically how that works. And so I'm going to be breaking out my jigs, my Texas rigs when I'm fishing the stumps and underwater trees. They're going to be held up really close to that. And keep in mind, if you're still up north and you still have some coming off spawning, which I guess is still kind of it could technically happen.
It's
The
still
right amount of
happening. Yeah.
yeah, the right amount of sunlight is needed to hatch eggs.
Yep.
Period. So when you have murky lakes, your beds are going to be shallow, more shallow. On clear lakes, those beds could be 10 to 15 feet down. And so
Yeah.
keep that in mind. If you're looking for them on the bed, you're like, where in the world they're at? If you're on a clear lake, they're deep. They can be deep. They can be shallow,
Yeah.
but just keep in mind the right
Let
amount of
me
sunlight's
play
needed.
off of that real fast. I want to
Go
share
for
a
it.
tip with you that my brother kind of discovered this year. So the area that he and my buddy Matt fish, it's around Camp Atterbury here in Indiana, and they have 4 bodies of water that are pretty close to each other. 3 of them are, for whatever reason, they're all 4 of them have a lot of grass, but for whatever reason, 3 of them are crystal clear.
Mm,
That's like the grass is really doing what it's supposed to do, and it really cleans up the water. But I think 2 of these actually feed in to the main one my brother fishes, which is almost always stained. I mean, always.
mhm.
And we're talking in a square mile. I mean, we're not no distance at all. I mean, you can literally pick up and move to another one in 5 minutes. The spawn was still going on last week in the
Yep.
murky one.
Yeah.
And my brother has been struggling, and he catches big fish out of here. But he was like, man, he caught some smaller ones earlier up on, a dam, because bass like to spawn, on rock or hard. They want hard bottom, no
Mhm.
silt. You've got to have something. And what he found out was when he started going over them with side scan, their beds were on this road bed like 10 feet, 15 feet down. They
There it
weren't,
is.
you always think, because you see the pros, they're right up there on the bank, and you see the fish in, 1 foot of water, and it's crystal clear, and you're throwing your white, not here. I mean, and this is a place and he was just like, these bass are still on the beds and they're just coming off, because he caught one and like half the tail was still tore
Red.
up red
Yeah.
and this and that. And so he's like, duly noted for next year, he knows how to play this. So he'll know that pre-spawn on that body will be later than the others. And that's why he was able to bang out so many. And I think he took like second or third in the state last month early on. And, but he's writing them notes. So
Oh
again,
yeah.
like you said, perfectly explained, the clear water, they'll spawn sooner. Murky, it takes a little lot water, for that light, like you said, to get down there and get it to the right place.
Yeah. It's crazy. So post spawn fishing, I think it's a little bit tricky. Like you said, they're recovering with the
Yep.
spawn. They're in a funky mood, right? Females are usually under some sort of cover. And what I found is that reaction baits will kind of elicit a strike from the females during this time.
Yep.
Males are your fry garters. So if you roll up on some fry, there's a male nearby, right?
Yep.
Mark that spot, circle back, and drop in a lizard or something into that fry ball. Um, right now I'm choosing bluegill type colors, right? Because as you mentioned, Gramps, bluegill spawns right around the corner.
Yep.
And so I'm pulling out all the bluegill colors right now in the lakes around me. There it is. Bluegill colors. You were like, what
Yep.
color should I throw today? Neon yellow? No, bluegill colors. If you're fish anywhere in Northeast Ohio and they're coming and kind of in close spawn. So summer heat, like you mentioned, they're going to push a lot of bass back to deep water sanctuaries. And they do that because, you know, food. Food's plentiful, water
Yep.
temperature is a bit cooler. And so you're going to be trying to identify those creek channels, right? The structure ledges. I often, before I go fish a lake, especially if it's new, I'm looking up topographical map and I'm trying to find when the lines are close together because that structure is going to be a lot of times where a lot of those big bass are going to be held up on. And so, and now when we start getting into this, they're out there, they're out in the deeper water. That's when you can start hooking up some monsters on your deep diving cranks. So I'll be
Yep.
tithing some of those up here pretty soon. Your shallow cover bass are usually hiding under some type of shade. So fish the crap out of your shade lines, your lily pads, anything where there's shade. A lot of
Yep.
times those shallow cover bass are going to be in there. And but at the end of the day, everyone knows here, bass behavior can change from day to day, hour to hour, minute to
Yep.
minute. I mean, those things they're always moving. And so little note here. If you run a bat, and I run by a lot of these recently. If you run by a bunch of bluegill beds and you're like, ooh, they're kind of cool, right? If you've seen them before, there's like 30 of them. Then sometimes you see even bluegill in them. The second I see a bluegill bed, I am looking around trying to find the nearest piece of cover I could possibly find. Maybe it's a grass bed, a dock, whatever it is. Because you find that nearest piece of cover, you're likely going to find the nearest bass because they're ambush predators. They're just
Yep.
waiting for one of those bluegill to come off the bed, mosey in the wrong place so they can get themselves a snack. So look to the left, look to the right, and you might find yourself some bass if you find some of those beds. So post bass fishing, tricky, but you can dial it in. What do you got for us, Gramps?
So I see a comment that I want to hit because I'm notorious for throwing a chatterbait. And what Bass Ackwards says was, I've been pulling a bluegill colored chatterbait through fry balls and getting nothing.
Mm,
Right now, moving baits it's you want if you're going to throw a moving bait, it needs to be a topwater,
mm,
because especially like a walking the dog bait, something that you can pop, pause, and then you're going to be calling those fish up from the deep. But to your point about you're trying to mimic even a bluegill colored chatterbait, these fish aren't in a chasing mood right now. They're
mhm,
exhausted. They need to eat, to build back up the energy. So we're not in chatterbait season quite yet. When it turns on, you'll know it. And everything from, when we're talking deep diving crankbaits, we're talking, deep dive and then slow. But that's why a Senko or Dinger, and yes, Mr. Wendell here posted a link for, what was it, 100 pack of Yum Dingers. And I actually bought some, even though I'm a Cinco guy. You
I
can't pass
I'm
up
I'm with
that.
you.
I have them
$28
here
for a
somewhere.
hundred.
I was gonna hold them up and say, and this is your fault. But the reason why, like stick baits and flukes and things like that, it's slow. If you're dropping them in their face, they're going to chase them. One of my other, when you're talking about bluegills, one of my favorites is a tube. This time of
Mm,
year, you can make it. You can pop it like a bluegill swimming. You can drag it, and they'll, it imitates a crawl. And this one, these are literally made um, to mimic, a bluegill. And you
oh yeah.
know and it's funny because if you've never fished a tube before, or if you used to years ago and you don't realize it's still a thing, it's like I used to be real specific and pull these tentacles apart one at a time, but you don't really have to. Now I got to tell my camera which way to focus again. But you don't have to pull them apart, because what these represent is kind of the back tail of the bluegill. And when you put your stupid tube head in here, which is a jig head inside, and it's just a little 1/8 ounce. And so when you pop it, it just kind of darts and then dies. And these things are incredible. So like this green pumpkin with like the black and purple flake in it and clear water is amazing. If you have stained water, I can't believe I'm actually going to show this one. My favorite one, it's basically the chartreuse tails. But of course, if you're you want to dip them and take a chance at getting JG's magic all over the inside of your kayak or boat, do yourself at your own risk. But I mean, the tubes like that are they're incredible. And if you're wanting to drag something in the rivers for terrorizing those smallies, they absolutely hate these things. And that little orange, smallies love the orange, they love the chartreuse, but I love the secret lures ones because they are so soft. A lot of people, I really like the KBD caffeine shad smelling ones for forever.
Oh, yeah.
But these things are so soft, and they still hand dip them themselves here in Indiana. And I'm actually going to go down there. I keep saying I'm going to go out, travel, and do more stuff. I'm actually going to go visit Secret Lures one of these days.
There you go.
And do like a factory tour and show how the old school tubes are still made. Because even though I make tubes with do-it molds, it's it's cool to see a company that still does it the old school way, and you can still catch a ton of fish on them. And I'm going to do a small series here coming up soon on the stupid tubes, because it's like the juice that was there 10 years ago. And, it's one of those things, all these other new baits come out and this and that. And, kind of people forget what really works. But the thing I love about them is when right now we're talking about bluegill being up on banks, depending on where you fish. A lot of places I fish, you have a lot of trees overhanging pits and things like that.
Yep.
You got to be able to get those baits up on the bank. There is no easier bait to skip than wacky rig or a stupid tube and get it right up in those bluegill beds. And you start popping them out, and the bass are just going to be sitting there just ready to snack.
Losing their ever-loving mind. So we did say it was going to be an interactive show, and man, I have 21 starred comments. So let's go and head back here a little bit.
Oh, yeah.
we went crazy on post-spawn just a second ago. So hopefully you got some value out of that. If you did, hit that like button. If you're on Gramps', on Gramps over there, hit the like button on mine. Really helps us get some extra yardage out of this. All right, Bass Ackwards. He says I can't find Wendall's emojis. That's because you're on Gramps' live show over on his YouTube channel, so you're not going to be able to see that over there. All right, Cooler Lid. Wendall, you're a full-time YouTuber. I am not, but I work like a full-time YouTuber, and so I put out content like it's a part-time job. So I don't sleep, but I am not a
Gramps will give you a video a week and a short. Wendell give you 6 shorts, 12 videos, 2 live streams. He's been hammering.
Here's my cadence. You guys want to know? It's the season. I don't do this all season long, but being that this is like people are fishing, they have questions and they're looking for answers on YouTube. I do 3 shorts a day, 1 live show, and 2 videos, 1 on Thursday, 1 on Sunday, and it is wild and crazy. YouTube is rewarding me for it, but make no doubt about it, I don't sleep much, but it's a lot of fun and I love doing it. So when it's your passion, you just love it. Anyways, all right, Scott Holmes, that intro music, and my man, I'm sorry, I've tried to find another song this past week because it's irritating the crap out of me too.
I love that song.
I think when he meant that intro music, he's like, yeah, that intro music, right? That could go both ways. I'm not sure. Scott, let us know what you were. I have a feeling I know where you're going with that.
One of the standard StreamYards was like ducks on a pond or something like. I always feel like Barry White's going to come out and good morning or good evening, everyone. Today we're going to do kayak fishing obsessed with your host, Wendall.
Ridiculous. All right, we're talking about frogs now. Here's some comments on the frogs. Elizabeth, who I believe is on your first team member, right, for Knucklehead? Is that right?
Oh, yeah.
So she's like,
the hammer from Florida putting it down.
You have Misery Loves Company, so she rarely throws a frog either. So you're good there, boss. Bucktail, I picked up some scum frogs, but I haven't thrown them yet. I have one of those too. I haven't put it on only because it's lighter, like significantly lighter than the rest of my frogs, and I really don't have enough line setups to get that out there, but that's just for me. All right, Lost and Tackle. He had a question here. And Gramps, you might be able to answer this one. Hey, this was in the context. He threw this over when we were talking about the Knucklehead and going down to Ditto's Landing for November for the Knucklehead Hero
Yep.
Cup. Where would be a good place to grab a campsite for November? And there's an issue here, so I'm glad he asked this question.
Yep. So where Chad stays is actually in Ditto Landing is a campground. And so if you want to camp there, and now keep in mind it is about 45 minutes, an hour drive to Gunnersville, which I mean that's just part of it too. But we're gonna be going back and forth regardless. There are campgrounds around as well. I've actually talked to Chad, and I'm sure Ditto Landing is the main place he's going to promote because that's where we're holding all of the other stuff as well, the evening festivities and the stuff that's going to make it really fun, which is going to be everybody hanging out. But Ditto Landing is your first place to start. Gramps will probably be in an Airbnb living the bigger life because I keep saying I'm gonna get back into camping, so much too. But my old broken down booty loves a bed, and we started being everywhere we go when it comes to fishing, to the
Yep.
national championship, to the classic, and it was just the best way to live. But I get it. There's a lot of people that still like to camp, and we're going to be getting into more of the camping, kayaking things, more next year as well. As I start, I'm going to go buy another cot and all this other stuff too. But for campground and Knucklehead, definitely Ditto Landing is your starting point, and then look around from there. So Ditto
Well,
Landing is in Huntsville, Alabama. Start there, and then expand your search if you need to.
well, I had a question for you because I thought maybe I talked to Chad about this. Maybe it wasn't you, but on Ditto Landing site, you can't tent camp during that time frame.
I think he said in one of the streams when somebody asked about that he was going to have an exception for Veterans Day weekend.
Great. Perfect. All right.
Yep.
So that is good news. So if you're like, hey, I want to kind of get down there, do it on the cheap.
I see I drove Frank nuts with my assault from Canada comment earlier when we were talking about the
What do you
smokes.
say?
No, I don't know, but the fact that I call it Canada instead of
Canada?
Canada,
I mean, bass season just opened up in Canada.
that's still just, it's
I
like, how
don't,
much, what do they get? 3 weeks a season to fish? I mean,
it's,
geez, I
it
couldn't
lose my
imagine being a
mind.
content creator up there.
Oh, it would be torture because
Oh,
literally I was talking to a guy and I asked him for the rationale behind it. It's like number one game fish here in the US. People fish it 24/7 and we still have
yep.
plenty. Like, why do you have those rules? He couldn't tell me. Do you know?
I have no idea. And one of the guys that I was watching that was on with it might have been Frank actually. I think he was talking about different provinces or like their different states have different rules
Different
depending on
rules.
where they are as well. So yeah, it was it's nuts. It might have been Frank. I think he was on with Debo and Dizzle not too long ago, if I remember right. So
Yeah.
it's just one of those, funky, that's the way they go.
Yeah. Oh,
My
you do
wife
you.
is over here having a good time because her internet's back up and her AC is working again.
Oh, yeah. Provide for that girl. All right, Hook
Yeah.
Life. He says, talking about post spawn. Post spawn bite been getting better and better in my area. Toads, Texas ribbon tail worms, creature baits, all have been producing for the recovering fish in the grass. Fluke
Yep.
bite just started as well. Solid, picking up. There's always nuggets here and there. Amy Richards, and this is kind of in response to your post recently, Gramps. I know that you threw out there was like a 25% off at Legacy Fishing for Corrado
Yep.
Cays, and she's like, just picked up the Corrado K from American Legacy. Is that deal still going on right now?
They were going to sell them until they all sell out. If you think about it, ICAST is coming in 2 weeks.
Uh-huh. Got that new juice
Probably
coming.
making some moves, to clean out some inventory before something new may hit the shelves. I'm sure in the next couple of weeks we'll have to be paying attention to Tackle Talk and others as they're down at ICAST, and kind of keeping us informed of all the new goodies coming on. And that reminds me, I need to call my buddy at Lou's and see what he might wants to spill before ICAST.
Ooh, the
Get him
juice.
on the next live stream.
Bring in the juice. I like it. I've
Yeah.
never been to ICAST. I want to go so bad. Obviously, it's not going to be in 2 weeks from now. Down, is it
Yeah.
Florida? Is that where it's held?
I think it's in Orlando every year too.
Orlando.
So you know what? Next year maybe we should plan a trip and see if we can't make that
Ooh,
happen.
that would be awesome. Yeah, I can get behind that. All right, we're not going to go down that rabbit trail. Let's talk later, Gramps, because that does sounds like a lot of fun. Cooler lid. Hey, enjoyed the tournament cheating video I did. If you guys haven't checked that out,
That's pretty
um,
good.
the reason I did it, and just so you know, is like I'm not like trying to promote cheating, right? I'm trying to promote fair play. And so if everybody knows the different ways that people cheat, um, those who are thinking about cheating, be like, everyone's gonna be looking over the shoulder because they know all of the ways, right, to look out for. And so check that out. It's interesting. I was geeking out on different like they. I even learned of a few others since then that people kind of posted in. I'm like, are you kidding me? So absolutely crazy. Go check that out if you're interested in that one. But to move on, Rello, this is a question for both of us, Gramps. If you could bring one lure out with you, say tomorrow, which lure would you both choose? Like, I'm gonna put some parameters on this. One and only for the month. What do you have tied on?
Oh, for the whole month?
Yeah, I put a little extra on there for you. Sorry, Rilla. Well, we do both if you want. One right now, and then if you had to have, does it change for the entire month?
Yeah, because as we're getting into as we get into that summer pattern, I would actually move from Liz. I'll take that reel and give it to my brother. Sorry, there's a chat. There's some stuff being sold in the chat, and I went in on it.
Oh, there are 70 comments since I went over here. I'm in the starred
Yeah, yeah.
section, and there's like a whole nother conversation. It sounds like
Because right now, like I said, this is where I'm still the Senko and the stupid tube. It was kind of the Senko before, and I kind of have a progression I go through. It kind of starts early in the season, first off with the Senko because I could drag it through and over grass and drop it, and then when I really got to get the bait up to the bank or I want something that I can kind of swim back or bounce or act like a bluegill or a crawl. That's where the stupid tube for me. And it doesn't matter if I'm on a pond, a strip pit, a lake, a river, always produces. When I get into deeper hot summer and I'm chasing them offshore, that's when I'm going to pull that like a 10-inch Berkeley power worm, my brother's favorite. Everybody who follows my brother, 10-inch blue flake power worm with a glass rattle in it. I mean, he will throw that thing. If he could live and only fish one bait year round,
that's it.
It's a 7 or a 10-inch. He's like, oh, I got two options, 7 and 10. And when he buys bulk baits, those are the two because every PB he's ever had has come off of that bait. He
Wow.
doesn't throw a lot of jigs. Everything he needs to do, he can do with a power worm. And just bottom line.
His PBs come off that bait because that's the only bait he fishes.
Yeah, I mean, he caught. It's funny because me and my buddy we roll through. We're in a river fishing smallies. I'm throwing a tube. Bobby's throwing a Ned rig. Jeremy comes in with the 7-inch blue flag power worm, 20 and a quarter inch smallie.
Hammer.
It takes the greatest picture ever with him holding it up with the smokes, hanging out of his mouth.
I saw it. Monster Bass actually used that as when they're going to interview him. You sent me that photo too. I was like, that is epic.
So I was like, is this not the most authentic picture you've ever seen? And it's just, yep. But I mean, so for me, my go-to is like a stupid tube. Like I said, if I can skip it under any and everything and everywhere, and it's people who follow my channel for a long time, know that I love a jackhammer and all that too. But my first most popular video on my channel is a short, as is the second. The first one is how to rig a stupid tube, or the first is how to rig a Texas rig.
Yep.
The second is how to rig a stupid tube. Yep. And there's a reason why those are two of the most effective baits there are. It's just the tube has gone out of, favor with all of the colors and all of the, but I mean, it catches everything. And I'm actually going to be working, I think, with Secret later on. They just started carrying these at American Legacy Fishing. So if you use Gramps 10, you get 10% off of these. Yeah. But I might actually, since, Secret's an Indiana company, I think I'm going to go down and maybe, like you have Cast Cray next to you. I've got I've got Secret lures not too far from me.
Edit that out.
And I'd like to go down and visit their facility and see if I can't get, some discount codes for the hooks. And somebody's asking me about hooks. So if you got a second where I can kind of talk about this.
We got time.
Because I did get a box from Secret and when I do a review on this thing I actually got to give away to you folks. But it's really just a little jig head.
Oh yeah.
And like I said, I use the smallest weight I find. And the hard part for me is these days, I love 5/0 hooks, and Gamakatsu stopped making these 60-degree bend EWG hooks in 5/0. So I think everybody now has 4/0. But I still had a bunch that I bought, and I've got to do it molds, and I make my own
Yeah.
that are in 5/0. But 4/0 works as well. But if you haven't seen a video on how to hook up a stupid tube, go check out. It's a short. It's easy to do once you kind of get the technique down. But just having that little bit of weight in the front when you let it pop or drop, and then you start moving it, just like you talk about when you do a Senko pop.
Yep.
That pop with the stupitude, it makes it dart.
Yep.
And
Erratic.
they can't leave it
Chomp.
alone.
They chomp. And if you haven't seen that stupid tube short, like where have you been? Because it's pushing up. It's coming up on 1 million views. So I'm not sure how you haven't
Isn't
seen
that
it.
insane?
It's stupid, isn't it? It's so awesome.
It is.
Oh, so good. Oh, I'm going to answer this question. So if you're just hopping in, and we have 60 people on the live right now, which is pretty exciting, just for
Awesome.
fun. So if you're coming in halfway, Gramps, myself, we do a mashup every month. Help us out. Hit the like button. I'm going to move on to this question. If I could choose one lure to go out, say tomorrow, if I went fishing, which lure would that be? Now, I love wacky, but I'm kind of moving away from it. Not like wholesale, but I was going to talk about this later, but I'll talk about it now. So what I try to do, I have 6 rods set up on the back of and this just what I like. 4 of those are confidence lures. 2 of those are unconfidence lures, and I will not take them off. And I do the research on it. I know this is relatively the time you're supposed to fish it. I know how to fish it. I've done all of that, right? Now it's just dialing it in, putting some time on the water. And I'll actually time myself because it's really easy to throw like 5 times, like, oh, I didn't catch anything. I'm gonna go back to my confidence lure. And so I'll tell like, hey Siri, set timer for 20 minutes. Everybody's phone's like going off right now, setting timers. But what I'll do is I tie that on, and I did this for the past month with a lure. I got the video coming out next week. It is the Yamatanuki. I freaking love that bait. It is so versatile, and I'm not gonna like give away what I share all in the video, but that's what I will have on tomorrow if I went out because
So
it
it's not
looks.
just a gimmicky.
It's not. It's
You like it, okay?
I like it. Here's the thing, Gramps. I'm doing this video. I'm not, when you're doing a video, sometimes I do it from the kayak, and I'm not really paying attention. I'm just kind of casting and talking, and the fishing
Yeah.
is the background music.
Yep.
And I'm slamming bass during the video, and and I'm fishing in a place that you typically wouldn't fish. Like you don't see a lot of videos. I didn't see any videos that said this is how you fish it, but
Yeah.
I'm not going to give it away. But it's not gimmicky. It's just a heavy plastic. I also like the depths cover scats. I
Yep.
like fishing those. So it's almost like a scat bait with a tail. It's an upside down bowling pin, essentially, if you haven't seen it before. But it's Yamamoto, super salty, great flutter fall. I'm stopping. I don't want to give away the video. It's coming out next Sunday, so check that out. But that's what I would tie on right now. And
A
being that I'm in
Texas
a
rig,
post
or how are
spawn,
you fishing it?
yeah, you Texas rig that bad boy.
Okay.
And it's a big hook. You need a 5/0 hook on the 3.5
Okay.
inchers. Yeah. I mean, they just came out 2.5 inchers as well. And you need like a 1/0 hook for those. But I want the big ones. And just think why it's killing me. Go back to our earlier conversation about post spawn fishing. What's spawning right now?
Yep.
Bluegill. It looks like a baby bluegill kicking through the water, and bass are losing their minds over it. And I'm just slamming bass on it right now here in Northeast Ohio. So that's what I would have on right now. I'm over here in the starred comments. There are 108 other comments that I haven't even looked at yet because I'm like going down through these questions. Oh, let me see here.
I
Hope
was going to
life.
comment that Mike asked if they were more durable than the Cincos. He doesn't like how easily they shred.
Oh
Well,
no,
that's why
absolutely
you buy
not.
them in the 50 and 100 pack, and then you buy one mold from Cinco or from Do It Molds, and you just remelt them,
Yeah,
make them again, and then put some salt on them and put them back in the bag and do it again next year.
there you go.
That's why they
Now
call
I
it Do
will.
It Molds. You do it yourself.
So I share because they're not cheap. The Yamamotos, the Yamatunukis, they're like $1.25 when you break it down per lure, and you'll get maybe 2 bass out of them. And there's some ways that you can kind of manipulate it and get a few more bass out of them, but I can rip through a $10 pack in the morning. But
Yeah.
would you pay $10 for 10 bass? All freaking day would I pay
Yeah. You
for that.
catch a 5-6 pound bass. Was it worth it?
Oh,
Mm-hmm.
absolutely. I'd pay more than that. So, I
Yep.
mean, when you add up all and I'm not saying whoever made the comments making that comment, but a lot of us get in this trouble. We spend $1,000 on kayaks and, trailers and $400 combos times 10.
What are you talking about? This sport is cheap.
And then, And like for some reason, and I do the same thing in my brain. I don't know why I do this. I'm like, oh man, that's a really expensive lure, and I don't buy it. Like I'll go wholesale on everything until the lure, the thing that's the least expensive. I don't know why I
Yeah.
do that. I don't know, but hey, you know what? You do you. That's the beauty of fishing. I mean, I get comments all the time like, "Oh, I carry 37 rods. Oh, I carry one, and that's the way to go." It's like
Yep.
I hike the Appalachian Trail. Everyone likes the hiking a different way, like the fast, slow, and it was always a saying called "hike your own hike." I was like, "Yeah,
Yes.
fish your own fish," and just yeah. Anyways, all right, let's move on here. Oh my goodness, 122 comments. Like, I got a couple other comments here from the listeners. Outdoor Conquest said definitely chatterbait season in Michigan. He can't keep them off of it. So that's great. Amy, awesome. Caught my PB last Sunday on an X Zone drop shot shallow.
There we go.
Congratulations. I'll celebrate
Drop
that.
shot's another good one this time of year too. Don't be afraid to put that out there and drag it back like a vertical Carolina rig. It's a good time of the year to start doing that as these fish are divvying up, deciding which way they're going to go.
Heck yeah. Hook Life said I had a bass on a bed last week. Hey,
Yep.
still
That's here in
happening.
Indiana.
Yeah, for sure. It's happening. And then you have Elizabeth is like, hey guys, water temperature is 87 degrees down here in Florida.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's gonna be getting a little warmer down there for you. It was in the 90s here this week. I was like,
Woo! It's getting warm. All right, let's move. Did you see anything in the comments? Why I wasn't really looking at it. You wanna
Yeah, I
address?
saw the standard, preference for the yum dingers, which I get that too. Fish, like he said, fish your own fish, whatever you're confident in. It's like I remelt and I have molds to kind of redo a lot of my baits. So if I'm tearing up Senkos now, they may end up being a 10-inch worm, a creature bait. That's the great thing about molds is you just melt the plastic, pour it back in, and do your own thing. But if you're not into any of that, I mean, I understand. I like Darren posted the thing with the yum dingers on sale on Amazon, and I ordered them because I may not give everybody my favorite stuff, but if I'm out fishing and somebody doesn't have something and I'm like, here, throw these,
Yep.
and you can hand them over, and the dingers will catch them too. And Chad Hoover put out a good tip on Senkos this week. Start out by fishing them weightless Texas rig, and then
Okay.
when you jack up the ends and do all that, put them back in the bag, and then though it's your bag full of Senkos for the wacky rig.
Yeah.
Oh,
And then
that's
once I split them in half,
Ned
now
rigs.
you're neg rig. So there you go, baby. Three
So
for
three
one.
three times the use for the one bait. So
And
and then you
then
melt it.
you melt it down and you make whatever you want. 4 uses,
Exactly.
one worm, 28 cents per worm. Can't beat it.
Oh, there was the comment that's going to be the future of one of my videos, and it just
Oh,
happens. I'm gonna
what
have
is
to
it?
film that sooner than later since you just gave me the perfect intro for this video.
All right, I gotta address this because I was gonna address it tonight. Well, first, well, here's the thing. I'm gonna address it. It's probably the same thing you're talking about. Morgan Smith images.
Uh,
All right, Morgan. I'm getting tired of Darren not using a net. Let me explain myself. One, I have I have oppositional defiance disorder. If someone tells me to do something, I automatically want to do the opposite. And I can't tell you how many people have told me, gotta get a net, gotta get a net. In fact, I did this video. I lost a fish. It jumped off my board. It was an 18 and a half incher. And grandpa's been telling me like all month long, he's like, oh man, I don't have time to like edit videos. I'm out there fishing. Within like 30 seconds of me posting this video, he finds the inspiration to make a follow-up video making fun of me for not having a net. I
yeah,
do
my
let
my
everyone know.
first my first video back after being on hiatus. Oh, it was just right there. It was too
Like,
good to pass up.
I don't have internet, guys. I don't have anything. I don't have the time. 30 seconds, the inspiration. And he gets like 2,000 views at it. I'm like, that's
I just took
freaking
one of your
ridiculous.
shorts and took one of my
I know.
shorts
I
and
know what you
said,
did. I saw
"Pow."
it. I saw what you did. And I told him I'm buying him a knife sharpener for Christmas. Morgan, I have good news for you. I lost another fish at the boat and it popped off. I got a video of that, and the video is titled on my short. I bought a net. So I have one in the mail. It's going to be here tomorrow before 10 o'clock. It is the Yak Attack foldable leverage landing net, 12
Yeah.
by 20.
And I'm going to do actually a roundup of various different styles of kayak fishing nets as well, because there are pros and cons to each different kind too. So I'm not going to say you pull the trigger and maybe purchase too soon, but you got a good option there too. Those are really nice.
I like that
And
one. My buddy has one I fish with, and I'm like, okay, solid. On top of my
if you
propel.
watch Gene Jensen, it's like somebody whipping out a bullwhip. It's
Dude, he's freaking like, yeah. I saw one video like he got it down like it was so ridiculous. His timing of it. He like caught the bass before. Anyways, you guys, if you don't follow the Fluke Master,
yeah.
what are you doing with your life? One. Also, bass backwards. I'll own this. At least he wears his PFD religiously now. I do,
Hey,
and I started
we're
that.
both guilty of that.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
when I first started out, it's law in Ohio that you just have to have it on board. But and so I
Yep.
was like, oh, I'm following the law until I get moderately crucified by everybody and their brother. And I started thinking about it at first because of my disorder. When I want to do the opposite, when someone gets on me about something, I will push it off and eventually reason and rationale. And I'm like, okay, I started this. I started my channel because I wanted to teach my girls how to fish, and I might not be around when they want to learn. And I was like, oh, well, what am I telling my girls that they can do? I want them not wearing their PFD when they're out there by themselves? No. And so, and it's a smart. I'm an excellent swimmer, and that's the number one, as you know, the number one excuse people get for not wearing a PFD is I'm a really good swimmer. The problem is you don't
Yep.
need it when you can swim. You need it when you can't. So I will
Let me
own
play off
that.
of that real quick because we
Yeah,
want to
go
drive
for it.
this point home.
Drive it.
As as you've proven that you are a world class swimmer, as is another fellow who's on the Monster Bass Pro staff. He was down fishing the Bassmaster Kayak series at the Classic. The kayakers were doing their version of the Classic prior to the boaters, and he was out pre fishing beforehand. And I can't remember what he got his kayak caught up on.
Mm,
Um, but he put himself in a position where he got dumped out of his, and he was a former Olympic class swimmer.
mm.
But we're talking now the water's, still cold early in the year. We're talking hypothermia, things like that. He ended up getting in the water. Yes, thank you, camera, for not focusing on where I'm at. Um, he ended up getting knocked out and into the water, and the cold got to him, and he couldn't even grasp enough air to call for help. But lucky enough, I don't think it was Jacob Wheeler, but it was one of the boat pros actually saw him come out of the kayak and pulled over and got
Whoa,
him out ASAP.
whoa.
And he said I couldn't have tried to do any stroke because I could not get my breath and my body basically. And there's dozens of stories of experienced anglers being caught in a river in a kayak and
Yeah.
got turned the wrong way. The current flipped them over, pinned them up under a tree, and if not for their vest keeping them above the water, could have easily drowned. So it's when you get used to it, it's really nothing. I mean, I wear an NRS Chinook, and a lot of people like the real thin little, but I wear an NRS Chinook, and I mean, I'll be out in 98 degrees, and it doesn't affect me whatsoever. And I'm a big old dude, and the heat just, it's just like I'm wearing anything else. It just doesn't get in the way. It's there when I need it, but I will never not be I'll never not be in a kayak again without a PFD. And I would like you. I used to keep them in the kayak and all that when the kids were younger and made
Yeah.
them wear theirs. But yeah, it's just if we're going to promote the sport, then we should also live up to what we're teaching as well. So
Absolutely. Absolutely. And if one person decides to wear it, I mean, here's the thing. Let's go off the PFD kind of conversation for a second. People underestimate water temperature and what it can do to you, right? If you fall in water, and a lot of us we're jacked, especially up here. If when it gets cold and you're out of fishing for a season, it's not everyone on the call. Because maybe some of you are down south, you can fish year round. But if just coming off ice off and you're out there fishing, you get in water that's 32 to 40 degrees, you have about 15 to 30 minutes. If you can't get back in your kayak and you're out in open water for whatever reason, right? You panic, you lock up, you don't have the energy, your kayak's full of water. You got 15 to 30 minutes for you to like go unconscious and have between 60 minutes before you're dead, like
yep.
survival. And so people underestimate what it can do to you. And it compounds when you're not wearing the right, if you're not dressed to swim when fishing in those type of conditions. So crap goes fast, it goes quickly and crap hits the fan. It's kind of kind of crazy there. Anyways, let's move on. Oh man, Morgan. Jeez. Do you want your daughters losing fish because they don't use the net?
Fair
Bucktail.
comparison.
Bucktail. Morgan turning up the grill and high.
Yeah.
Pass backwards. I'm dead. I get it. I get it. Elizabeth. He says NRS Chinook is $3 signs. Ugh. If you didn't like that price, go check out the Raku with the high back float kind of dispersed all the way down the back. Add an extra $60. I mean, it could be 180 for a nice one. But man, I love mine now. I got all these pockets. I got my phone holder. I got my Rode
Yeah.
tether. It's really easy to take, photos. I don't have to worry about my phone falling out or all kinds of things. You bump into a bunch of things. It's nice to have hooks.
But there are some folks that are very minimalist. The Mustang that have the air, things in them, and all. It's you can find something that works for you, and that's like you said, hike your own hike, and you got to do the same here too. Some of us have different body types that we have to deal with, and others just want the lightest and easiest thing that stays out of their way. So there's several different types out there, and find what works for you.
All right, we're coming up to the end of our. You can't believe it. We're at an hour already. Crazy. Really fast. Itchin, my man. Number one person. My first interview was with Itchin the Fish out there in Arkansas. And so I need to bring him back on. It's been, 33 episodes since I've had him on. He said he bought a new Chinook off season for half the price. So, think about that. When I first read that, I thought he said I bought a Chinook off brand. Like I thought he got a Chinese knockoff for half price. All right. Let me see here. Oh, Elizabeth says I have the manual inflatable. It's horrid.
Yep.
All right.
I have 2 of those in my boat just because I have to have them in there.
Right.
Because I'm not going to fall out of the boat like Bass Geek, right?
When's the last time you've been in your boat?
Dude, you going to call me out?
I'm going to call you out because I hear you never talk about it.
Yeah, last year. I mean,
it's time to sell, baby. Sell right now. Time to sell.
I literally thought about it. No, I this month I'm actually going to get out and make some videos in it, and then I'll probably sell it.
I don't believe it. You can have a fleet of fishing kayaks for when you sell that bad boy.
Yeah, and that's what I'd rather. That's what I like to do too. So I need to put it up for sale. I don't know why I keep fishing out of it. I need to, when we have our Freedom Squad meet up in a couple of weeks, I need to get convince Debo that he needs a boat. Right? Oh, speaking of which, you need to come down and see us if you're free on the weekend of July. When is that? July
15th or something?
15th, I think it is. Yeah, we're doing a send-off. We're doing a Freedom Squad gathering here around the Indianapolis area, but we're also doing a send-off for our good friend Master Sergeant Ralph, Army Outdoors, as he's getting ready to PCS from Fort Knox down in Louisville out to Fort Irwin, California. So if anybody's around the area, come see us. We're gonna be fishing in one of the boys' favorite spots up there around Camp Atterbury.
Ooh.
And Matt OEF5 is gonna bring his smoker, so we're gonna do some burgers and dogs and whatever, and just be a good time. This will be the first one that we've done. So if we have 10, 15 people show up, it'll be a good time. If it grows a little more next year, so be it. So but looking forward to having that coming up here in a couple of weeks, and then we'll schedule some more in the future as well.
Heck yeah. And thanks for the invite. I can look at my calendar. I know I'm on vacation the following week, so I'm not sure if I'm able to make that, but I would love to because I love Army Outdoors. So awesome. Mike M says Debo needs a yak in the worst way. And when I interviewed him, I was like, "Have you ever been in a kayak?" His answer was no. He has never.
Chad
in his entire life
offered to send him one, and he just I don't know.
He loves his John boat with a little motor. I was like, well, you got to give it. You got to give it some, you got to try it. I don't know.
Maybe they're afraid of learning what we all know. It's just the best way in the world to fish.
They're afraid of, they're never going to get pulled into the dark side. That's what it is. Yeah. I think he would secretly, like Elizabeth's saying, he would secretly love it.
Yep.
And everybody, the comments are lighting up. Kayak fishing is the way to go. I love it. All right, I got one last question for you. If you have a question for Gramps or myself, go ahead and throw that in the comment section. We'll end on it. But I talked about unconfidence lures, and I think for me, it's a way to grow, right?
Yeah.
I'm putting something on. And it used to be like the one lure, and you just, for years probably before I got into YouTube, you just used the one thing that because you didn't go out all the time, you just wanted to catch some bass. But you want to grow your craft, you got to throw things on and research different baits that you are not good at. And so the question to you, Gramps, do you have that kind of mentality where you have some type of unconfidence lure on from time to time? And and if there is there one that you're working on right now?
I mean, realistically, I've been fishing for so long that there's probably not much I don't do, and it's for me, it's like dusting off, like with the whole frog thing. I didn't throw hollow bodies because I caught them on a toad. If I was fishing around, for me, it's all about practicality. To me, but then a hollow body frog is a waste of time. I could throw a plastic toad into the same stuff and catch the same fish in the pads and this and that, and I didn't have to worry about blow ups and missing, as much.
Right.
It became a running joke, but I mean, I understand the value of a frog. But I mean, I can't say that I guess if there's something I'm working on that's maybe like a newer technique, it's probably learning to fish offshore and using like a shaky head. Whereas, I live on where everybody throws a Ned and all that. Um, to me, it's like this is just another jig. When I was a kid, you would get these same mushroom heads and you would get the Yamamoto hula grubs,
Hmm.
and it was almost the same setup. If you just cut the little feelers off, you had the modern Ned rig. But I mean, it's just one of those things where everything kind of circles back around. So for me, a shaky head is probably something I'm playing with a little bit more, because as I move offshore and start fishing more brush piles where I would generally throw a pegged Texas rig, a shaky head might be a little better option in some of those places. So I'm doing some videos using various spinning rods, or I won't call it BFS, but it's kind of is when I'm doing a drop shot with like a loose, the new shallow spools, or even their old ones that had the shallow spools. So you can put lighter line on and
Hmm.
basically not have to carry a spinning rod. I can carry a bait caster and use it for multiple things: drop shot, shaky head, so forth and so on. But if there's anything I'm trying to work on learning, it's going offshore. It's fishing those brush piles out deeper. Like Liz said earlier, she's been off the banks and her big fish are coming from deeper water, because a lot of time that's where those big fish live, and they're not getting hit as much
Yep.
because they're not, a lot of people like to beat the banks or fish from the banks, and they can't get out to those spots. So if I'm working on something this summer, it's going to be learning an offshore game, and getting them off those brush piles. And that actually saved me last year at the national championship, because it was late in the year, and I actually ended up fishing some of the fish I needed to get back in the game and qualify for the championship Friday in the top 100, and two of them were throwing a pegged Mag Fatty Z from Z Man
Okay.
into some offshore brush piles, and those were ones I was looking at on live scope, and trying to make them bite. But now I'm gonna kind of follow up with that and work on doing the same, but with a shaky head, because I hear they're a little bit better for kind of getting through that brush and goofy stuff that's out offshore
All
and
right.
rock pile.
There you go. Right on. I think for me, um, I, I've caught fish on chatterbaits. I just have not dialed it in. Right. I need to dial in the micro, the mini max, the big blade, and all the different variants and nuances to it. If there's a lot of great, of course, Tactical Bassin out there does really great bait reviews. But if you have not yet seen Tyler, and I'm going to have him on the show here in probably in months ahead of time. We've already been from Bass Fishing HQ. He
Oh
has some of the
yes,
best lure breakdowns that I've seen. I love Tactical Bassin, but he's my number one right now. And so if you
Tyler
want
is
to,
one of the best. Him and Fish the Moment are two of my favorite for really breaking that kind of stuff down.
yeah,
Fish the Moment for the electronics, and
right,
Tyler is phenomenal at
phenomenal.
teaching and breaking it down. Yep, Tyler Berger.
From Ohio
That's
too, so don't get much better
Yeah.
than that right there. So gonna have
Yep.
him on the show, so that'll be exciting. All right, I got one last question from the listeners, and this one's interesting. I want everyone to kind of answer this, right? And I'm going to ask Gramps, and I want to hear what he has to say, and I'll give my POV, but I want you to answer it as well in the comments. And it's from William Agee. What was your biggest struggle when you first started kayak fishing? Everyone answer that. Gramps, what do you remember? What is like the thing you're like, oh, I wasn't expecting that thing out of left field.
The first thing that most people experience is learning about wind management.
Mm,
Um, you don't now. I don't have that problem in what I'm in now. But when you're just starting out, your first kayak paddle, being on the water, you don't know a lot about anchor trolleys, anchors, anchor wizards, things that are there so that you can actually fish instead of anytime the wind picks up. Because really, as anglers, we love the wind because we want that little ripple on the water. It helps us be masked from the fish with having that turbulence on the top of the water. But on the same, getting blown around, it's like paddle, 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 one cast, paddle, 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 one cast, or find yourself, oh, I'm going to butt up against the bank and bank fish sitting in the kayak.
right.
But wind management is a lot of the other things, and I think the second thing on top of that is afraid of tipping over or balance in your
Yeah.
kayak, because those are things you have to learn. A lot of us start out with the Wally World specials and work our way up after that.
Hmm.
And I don't know how many times that me and the boys learned it. Oh, let me reach over and grab this fish, skadoosh. A lot of times we're fishing in skinny water, and it didn't make that much difference, but you still have to be careful in places like that, because if you're getting in a place that's like a flooded with a dam and it's still skinny, you could have muddy bottoms and you could sink down a foot and a half
Right.
and lose your Crocs before you even know it and get stuck, and you don't want that. But wind and learning how to be comfortable in a kayak as far as balance and tippiness goes, probably the first two things that new kayak anglers have to deal with.
Yeah. Yeah. Two things that were noticeable for me, and so I don't overlap. Of course, that's the number one questions I get a lot of time is I hate unloading and unloading. So people underestimate that a bit when they buy their kayaks and how they're gonna transport it and how heavy it is. Wind when you actually get on the water. But for me, I'm gonna move kind of past that into fishing. And maybe it's just me. Anybody else that if you agree with this, you're like, oh yeah. But the first like 5 times I went out, I was fishing because you're casting sitting down, and I was using muscles that I haven't used in like 20 years. And I was
Yeah.
like, and I woke up the next morning, I was beat. I'm like, what in the world did I just do to my body? And I was trying to figure out how to like roll cast and side cast so I don't get what I call the double rat nest, right? You get your
Yep.
bait caster, you get caught up behind you. You got a rat nest here, and then you got the rat nest 6 feet above your heads. The double rat nest. It's the worst, and you can't get to it, right? So it's a hot
Yep.
mess. So that was one of the most like frustrating things for me. I was like, I hope it's not always like, and it's not. You dial in how to cast and how to, you get just a new rhythm to it. But coming from like bank fishing, it's like,
Yep.
what in the world is going on? And so that was unique for me. Do we got some comments over here? Let me see. Um,
First time you go to cast back and you break a rod tip that's sitting in a rod holder behind you. Oh, I forgot that was there.
yeah, there you go. Let me see what else we got. Some guys use a double anchor wizard to kind of handle the wind, and that'll
Yep.
work. I was just joking with a buddy. Like we need like talons for kayaks, like they have on the boats, like aluminum talons that come down, keep you in spot. Let me see. Yeah. Also at the beginning, itching the fish. He says accidentally catching your rods behind you. I still do it from time to time because I
Oh
put my
yeah.
camera up off my right, which is dumb. I need to switch it over to my left because I cast from my right. But sometimes I put it at like different angles further out. And I just forget that I did that. Of course, catch it and
When I'm using my net, I always net on my right side, so that's why my camera's over there.
see. I do. I will as well. Here's I never used the net also because there's something magical to me to landing a fish and lipping it and bringing out the water. Like
Yep.
there's just something epic in that moment.
Watching them open their mouth when they bit a jackhammer and they just disappear back into the water because you didn't have a net.
So I'm not good at chatterbait fishing. That never happened to me.
You're gonna learn.
I will learn, but I'll have a net now because it's on
Yes.
the freaking way. So pretty excited. And the great thing is I have like for me, I always thought I had to go up over my shoulder, which I just didn't want another thing back there behind me.
Yep.
And so I propel drive, and there's a quarter 20 inch hole there. That I'm going to put a roto, a yak attack, kind of what you put a paddle in, and kind of set my net right on the front of my kayak, which is completely unusable space for me. And so that is going to be the setup. My man who I fish with was like, "Ooh, I like that setup. I'll get a net
Yeah, I
now."
saw
And
you
I
using the
lost.
double yak holder for your catch board as well, and that's
Yes.
another perfect way to use them.
Just had someone ask me what I was using. I was like, "Oh yeah, here's the link. It
Yep.
works very nicely. Tether it, because if you bump it a little bit, that thing's
Oh.
going in the water. If you don't have that tethered, say goodbye to your $90 aluminum Catch X."
Oh, you know what? Since real quick before we end, I want to show you guys something that hasn't been revealed yet. These just came in today.
Ooh, bringing us some. You've seen it first here on the mashup. What do we got?
So as you guys know, 4th of July is coming up, right? And
Uh-huh.
every year, Catch does a special run
Oh
of
yeah.
the America board,
Heck
right?
yeah.
So, you got the stars on the inside on the blue background with the red fence.
You already own one of
Well,
those. Why you have a new one?
since I've started partnering up with Catch, they sent me and Jeremy out a little something special.
What? Freedom Squall. That's sick.
So there's the Freedom Squad logo on the
Sick.
America board
That's nice.
at Catch. So I'm gonna meet up with Jeremy this weekend, hopefully, and present him his. And our buddy Matt, the other founding member of Freedom Squad, they actually built his when he was up there visiting the Catch headquarters with Chad Hoover and Fluke Master back when they were here for the boat show.
Yeah.
But they didn't have the parts to build one for me and Jeremy until they started doing this run. So I got an email earlier this week, and our good friend Duke at Catch is like, sending you guys some presents, him and Nick. So they sent me and Jeremy those. So that was really cool of Catch to do that too.
That is cool. Great company, quality products. I'm not sponsored or anything by them, but hey, my Catch X have held up like a boss. It is tough, built tough. All right, Gramps, man, that was a whole lot of fun. We got Josh asking. I'll answer this question: carbonate or aluminum? It's up to you.
That's the
right?
aluminum. Yeah, that's the aluminum America board. So it's very much exactly like the one I took to the national championship, except this one they put the Freedom Squad logo on it for us. So it was really cool.
That's awesome. There's so many more questions. The great thing about this, I have Gramps on. Well, he has me on because we do a mashup once a month. And so we'll do this again in a month. We'll talk some more fishing, have a good time. But if you haven't done so yet, please, we'd love you guys subscribe to the channel. I don't usually ask that a whole lot. I never do in my videos anymore. But man, that helps out a whole lot. Kind of signals to YouTube that, hey, you want more of this. And if you do, we'd love to have you sub. Please hit that like button. And I will see you guys next. Actually, I won't see you next week because it is July 4th. And I'll see you in 2 weeks. But thank you so much we love the interaction. So thank you so much. And we'll see you guys. I'll see you in a couple weeks. And Gramps, whenever he decides to have another live in a couple weeks, you'll see him on two.
Probably starting on Mondays again. Yep.
Yeah.
we'll be back now that we have internet.
Right on. Get out there and get some, guys and girls. See ya.